Hey guys, Dr. Cosentino here, president and founder of Empire Medical Training. And today we're doing something very, very special. I'm looking forward to it. We are doing actually a podcast. I'm here with Dr. Beavers, and we're doing a podcast on peptide therapy, everything about peptide. So let me give you a little background about who the speakers are. Dr. Joseph Beavers, a medical doctor, MD. He has practice in beautiful St. Augustine, Florida, and his specialty that his focus is aesthetics and functional medicine. So he's been practicing for many, many years, and it's strictly limited to aesthetics and functional medicine. And he's expert, of course, in functional medicine and peptides. So this is definitely going to be a fun topic. Now, the other thing is, of course, we don't want to take so many different peptides at one time. So again, I've got those three, but what about NAD? Can I take NAD also? That would be a fourth. I should say, I was about to say fourth peptide, but NAD is not a peptide. So,
Right.
how many peptides will you have your patients on?
Well, start one at a time. So they can, my patients can be on multiple peptides. And
What's the most that you'll have them on at one time?
goodness, I think at one time they probably could be on at least 3 to 4.
Oh, okay.
Some of them a little
I
bit
know that
more.
varies because in our team, we've had doctors say 2 on average, but they typically say start one at a time. But that answer has varied within our faculty.
I think the key is start one at a time and then build. Start with one and then wait a couple weeks before you add another, and then wait another couple weeks before you add another, so that you have some idea which one might be causing any problems, if they're going to cause problems for you.
Okay, and then also, how long is you're not going to take NAD or BPC 157 forever. So how long is, and again, it depends on the peptide, but how long would you have somebody on a peptide for?
It depends on your goals, depends on what you're trying to do, but
Okay.
for most peptides, you kind of want a cycle. So that does a lot of things. That will help your receptors just have a break. That will negate or help you kind of have these cycles of growth and stabilization, or growth and get rid of the old stuff. So it does a lot of things, I think, naturally. Your body's going to cycle on its own in a lot of ways. There will be periods of growth followed by periods of just kind of preserving and maintaining. So in
That's
a way,
good
it
advice. That's good.
replicates what your body naturally would do.
Okay.
And then if there are any potential negative side effects from taking some of the peptides, potential risks, which, by the way, have only been shown in animals a lot of times, animal models like rats and things like that. We talk about, not to get off on a tangent, but we talk about GLP-1 agonists and the possibility that they can cause medullary thyroid cancer. Well, that came from an animal study. There hasn't been a single out of thousands and thousands and thousands of people taking GLP-1s, a single case of medullary thyroid cancer attributed to the GLP-1. BPC 157, can it cause tumors? Can it, via the angiogenesis, cause a cancer to grow? Theoretically, but has there been a single animal case of that or human case of that? No, there hasn't.
Good.
So if you want to try and reduce the risk of that, you get on and you get off, and you get on and you get off, and you limit your liability in a way.
Yeah,
by
that's
doing
good
that.
practice.
So every peptide is a little different how long you can be on. A lot of them are going to be like around 8 weeks.
Okay.
So GH secretagogue's probably 8 to 12 weeks. BPC 157, something like 4 to 8 weeks, depending on why you're doing it and what the injury was. Other things will be short courses. So MOTS-C will be like 20 days.
Yep. Okay.
And SS31 will be like 21 days. And epithalin will be a short course. And you're maybe going to do those twice a year, or maybe 3 times a year.
Okay.
But they're going to be a lot different dosing and course than the others.
I was thinking about testing as we were talking about this, because with hormones, of course, we have to test, testosterone levels. Very, very important to really know where you're at. But is there any peptide in particular that, I'm thinking of NAD because there's testing, but is there any peptides that you would absolutely want to test? And and check their before levels, check their progress during and maybe after. And maybe we could start with NAD. How do you feel about testing with NAD?
I don't know that it's necessary. It's nice to test
Okay.
and know where you're at, but we know that the levels go down every decade of life.
Okay.
And so testing it when you're 40 or 50, it's probably going to be low if you
You kind of
haven't
know the
done
result
something.
anyway.
Yeah, if you
Okay.
haven't done something already to try and improve it, it's probably going to be low.
Okay.
So testing for NAD may be a little bit overboard, but it's always nice to have the information
Okay.
starting out.
Any other peptide before we start, we need to check some levels or testing. What kind of
Yeah,
testing would you do?
all of the GH secretagogues, sermorelin, tesamorelin,
Mhm.
CJCP, epimorelin, that's the one where you have to test a lot of things. So you have
Yes.
to check a glucose, you have to check an A1C, you have to check
IGF.
a baseline IGF-1 level,
Uh-huh.
because elevated IGF-1 levels can raise blood sugar. Hopefully, after changes have occurred and visceral fat is reduced, blood sugars might get a little bit better in those cases. But if someone's borderline diabetic, they have to be monitored very, very carefully if they're
Okay.
going to use any of those. And any diabetics, probably you wouldn't use GH secretagogues because of that
Okay.
reason. So you need to know that.
This is definitely helpful because I think we don't want practitioners to just go and prescribe some of these things,
Right.
without doing a proper workup. I mean, we're talking in kind of like on a different subject, but obviously with everything that we're doing, we were talking about, they need a complete workup, complete evaluation, and really a full assessment as to whether or not even peptides are indicated or not. But
That's
with
right.
some of these in particular, like the ones we're talking about, definitely these extra testing should be done. The IGF level to see where your starting point is and to measure progress, I think would be important.
And that's one of the great things about the courses we're putting together at Empire.
Oh, yeah.
Is going the full mile in all
Uh,
of the workups and the testing and the dosing, because I've been through several courses
uh-huh.
before when I was learning, and not everything was taught. They would mix and match, and maybe for this one, but not another one. And
Mhm.
this course would teach it, they would tell you a little bit of the dosing, and this other course would tell you about the testing, and nothing was consistent. So I think
Uh,
we've built something really
yeah.
comprehensive here at Empire.
Actually, we started, trying to think, when do we even start the teaching on peptides? It's been many years. It's just now, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. Now we've developed it into more of a much more comprehensive program. We have an educational certification program that we'll talk about in a little bit. But it's fun. It's one of the benefits, the perks of my position, is that I get to be involved with developing the curriculum, and I get to learn all the coolest, cutting edge, greatest stuff that's out there in medicine. So that's whether it's aesthetics or pain management or functional medicine. I'm involved with, development of the curriculum and just getting to appreciate, all this new technology. I love technology from the business side of it. I'm very, very active in the business curriculum and just all the cool AI stuff and all the technology. So,
And you were one of the first in medical training.
oh,
Am I wrong?
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I started this in 1998, and just as a quick aside, there were so many obstacles starting off. We were actually, made fun of. We were looked down upon because we kept when people heard the term Empire Medical Training, they're like, "Oh, you're the company. Yeah, I heard about you guys. You're the ones that train the family practitioners and the general doctors, and you're the company that trains the nurses." And yeah, that's us. We were the company, and that went on. I remember the first from 1998, at least 7 years. We were looked down upon, and then eventually, of course, that changed. But it was a little bit of a tough struggle to get past that. But we didn't quit. We kept through it because we know that nurses, doctors are more than qualified to do this, provided they get good training. So my focus was, the input, whether it's the bad input that we're getting from some of these people, is useful in that. I want to make sure that our training is very complete and is very medically oriented and is good training that will help the practitioner become a better practitioner. That's always been the goal. And I think that stemmed from some of the obstacles and from the input that we got. But this topic is fun. I love
It
talking
is.
about
Yep.
peptides and so forth. And guys, if you have any questions, you want more information, just you want to speak to an education advisor, we have dedicated education advisors on staff every single day, Monday through Sunday. Feel free to call us. And there's a ton of information, including blogs and how to reach us and everything about all these courses, upcoming dates and calendar. All that's on the website, empiremedicaltraining.com. I look forward to meeting you one day in person as well. Thank you.